This is a presentation of OneLogin Training.
Welcome to How to Get Started with OneLogin Workforce Identity. This is the first video in a series of 7. Main objective of this course is to walk you through the most important steps you will need to complete in order to successfully implement the OneLogin platform for your organization. We know you're eager to jump in and start configuring things, but we don't want you to make some of the mistakes we have seen others make. For example, if you jumped in and, say, configured one of your major applications like Office 365 before you had gotten all of your users into OneLogin and ensured that they can log in successfully, well, you'd probably be faced with an awful lot of really angry users because they can no longer access Office 365. So the steps we outline are being covered in the order that we recommend they be completed. During this course, we will not be going through exact details of how to perform every task, because many of those details will be different for each one of your implementations. Detailed instructions are available in our documentation at support.onelogin.com. The intent of this course is to give you a strong understanding of how the OneLogin platform components work together, so you can understand why we recommend doing things in a particular way and can make informed decisions for your organization. So let's take a look at what we will be covering. In our first video, we're going to start off with a basic overview of what we're working towards. It always helps to have a clear idea of where you're trying to get to before you start out on a journey. Then we'll do a couple of simple housekeeping tasks. Make sure your administrative access is set up correctly and do a little customization. In the second video, we're going to look into how you want to create your users in OneLogin. This is actually the first major step of your implementation. Our third and fourth videos will take a look at how you can set up a simple and secure login for all of your users. And then finally, the last 3 videos will show you how to use our app connectors to configure connections to the applications and provision users into those applications. So let's take a look at what we're trying to set up. Once you have OneLogin implemented, your users might start their day by logging into the OneLogin portal. And from there, click on Tiles to access the applications they need to get their work done. As they click on each tile, the application will open in a new tab and they will be automatically logged in without having to provide any further authentication, unless you want them to. Again, it's important to understand that once you configure your applications to integrate with OneLogin, many of those applications will actually force users to log into OneLogin first before they can get into the applications. So, when users go directly to the login pages for applications that have been configured to use authentication protocols like SAML or OIDC, we will talk about those more later, they will be redirected to log into OneLogin and will only get into the application once they have successfully done so. For services like Wi-Fi or VPNs, a user would provide their OneLogin credentials directly to the VPN or Wi-Fi service. For example, a user might provide their OneLogin username and password to a VPN client installed on their laptop. The service has been configured to use OneLogin for authentication, either through Radius or VLDAP. Thus, the credentials are forwarded to OneLogin. As long as the credentials are valid, the user will be allowed to connect to the service. Let's take a look at that user experience. Okay, so a user might see a login screen like this, and they're going to log in with the credentials we've given them, and hopefully type in those credentials correctly. don't want to save the password in the browser. That is not secure, so don't do that. Now, user is logged into the portal. So the portal is going to show them basically any of the applications that you've assigned to them. Most frequent ones are going to be on the Frequents tab. If they go to something like the Company tab over here, they're going to see basically anyone that has been assigned to them. This particular user only has 3 apps assigned to it, so we actually see the same on Frequents and on the Company tab. If they still can't find it, they could always search. So I search for something like FedEx. That's what I'm looking for. Then as the user, I'm going to click on my tile. FedEx happens to be using Forms authentication. So we can actually see that username, password get submitted there, and voila, we are logged in as our user Blake. It's on a new tab, so I can always go back over to the portal and we can take a look at how single sign-on might work if we'd set up something like SAML. So if I click on the Salesforce tile here, again, new tab pops up. If you watch the URL changing up there, it's kind of popping back and forth between my OneLogin portal and my Salesforce portal. That's some information that they're exchanging between them. And now my user's been allowed in because basically Salesforce was set up to trust my OneLogin instance, and anything that OneLogin is authenticating, it's going to let that user in, as long as the user has an account in Salesforce. Now, I could do the same thing here for Office 365, or I can also show you that the user might browse directly to the Office 365 portal, in this case Microsoft Online portal, and portal will recognize that user needs to be logged in from OneLogin. Watch the URLs change up at the top there. You can see a little conversation going on with them, and voila, my user's been logged into Office 365 using OneLogin. User totally clueless to the fact that that was going on. And finally, if I have something like Global Protect here, which is a VPN client installed, when I click on Connect, if Global Protect is set up to trust OneLogin or utilize OneLogin basically as like a Radius server or even VLDAP, then when I connect, it's actually going to give me a OneLogin prompt to log in with. Provide my credentials, I'm connecting to my VPN. So, before we can have all your users securely logging into their applications and services, we need to make sure we know how they are going to be created in the OneLogin Cloud directory as quickly and easily as possible. Then, again, before we can set them up to connect to those applications and such, we need to ensure that they are logging into OneLogin as securely as possible. Once we are ensured they are logging in securely, we can configure connections to their applications and services. But first, some general housekeeping tasks, like making sure you and the rest of your team that will be implementing OneLogin are actually able to log in as well. When your OneLogin account is first set up, there is only one user account, and by default, that account is what we refer to as the account owner, kind of like a root user or an administrator account. This account is all powerful in your OneLogin instance, so we don't recommend that anyone logs into your account regularly as the account owner. This means we need to create at least one more user account and make it a super user. First thing we need to do is create at least one super user account. Assuming you are currently logged in as the account owner, first you will need to create a new user account to make the new account owner. You can easily create the new user by clicking on the user menu, then clicking on New User. The first name and last name should be something generic, like first name app, last name owner, and the username can be whatever you wish. If you have some sort of distribution group that goes to your team, or at least those that are responsible for OneLogin, You can use that for the email address. You will occasionally need to log in as the account owner to make certain configuration changes. Therefore, you will want to set the password for this account and save the credentials safely somewhere. Once you have saved the user, you can scroll down to the bottom of the User Info tab and click on the Add Privilege button. We will need to make this account a super user first in order to be able to make it the new account owner. So select Super User from the drop-down and click Continue. Super users have full control over everything, except for the 3 main things only an account owner can do, like assign a new account owner, manage any of the settings under Account Settings, or access billing information, again, underneath Settings. There are other privilege levels you can assign users to minimize their admin access scope to just what is necessary, such as manage user privileges grants the ability to just add, update, and delete users. But for setup purposes, you will want super user privileges. So let's go and create our new super user. So to make our super user, we're going to start off here in the admin UI. I'm just going to go to Users, and I'm going to click on New User. Call this guy Demo Owner at demo.com, and just save the user. Now, at this point, we will want to make sure we get a password set for this user. So again, it's going to be one that we are going to save safely someplace else. And then we just need to scroll on down and make this guy a super user. So click on Privileges and select Super User from the drop-down. Click Continue. Now that we have a user account that is a super user, we can make it our new account owner. Again, by default, the OneLogin account owner is the user that created your OneLogin account, or was specified if the OneLogin account wasn't created by you. Remember, the account owner has control over everything in the OneLogin account, and it is best that it is not anyone's personal account, nor that it is synchronized with an external directory, such as Active Directory. Best practice would be to create a new user account, look upon it as kind of a service account, and make that the account owner, which is exactly what we are doing here. In order to change the account owner, again, you'll need to be logged in as the current account owner. Create that new user and then assign that user super privileges, as we already did. Now you can navigate to Settings, Company Info, and there's an Account Owner dropdown. Select that new user from the Account Owner dropdown. Let's go take a look how to do that. Now we'll make him an account owner. So I'm going to go to my settings menu up here at the top. Again, I need to be logged in as the current account owner in order to make this change. But I am going to go to company info here. And because I'm logged in as the current account owner, I get this nice little drop down here where I can choose the new account owner. And I'm going to choose that demo owner user I just created and click save. So now we have a brand new account owner, and I, as a human being, should only be logging in with my personal account, and then only log in as the account owner when I need to do the steps that an account owner can do, like change stuff underneath account settings. Notice I'm currently logged in as my demo account guy, which no longer is the account owner, and I don't even see account settings anymore. And by the way, under company info here, no longer see who the account owner is. So again, only the account owner has access to that information. Before we continue, we want to make sure your administrators are logging in securely. So at minimum, This means we want to require they provide an additional authentication factor every time they log in. So we need to add an additional auth factor like OneLogin Protect, then create a user policy for our administrators that requires they use OneLogin Protect, and finally apply the new policy to our admins. We will go into user policies in more detail later on in this course when we talk about how to ensure your users are logging in securely to OneLogin. But we want to make sure we do this particular change right now so that our administrators are getting in securely while they're configuring OneLogin. Once you've added the new auth factor like OL Protect and made it available to your administrators through the user policies, they can register the MFA factors themselves through their own profile or be prompted to register them when they first log in. So let's take a look at how we can set up secure logins for our administrators. So before we go any further, we want to make sure that all of our super users, and that includes the account owner, are logging in as securely as possible. So that means we're going to enable MFA for them. Before we can enable MFA for them, we need to add an authentication factor to our OneLogin account. So we're going to go to Security menu, click on Auth Factors, go to New Auth Factor, and we're going to use OneLogin Protect. Require that they lock their screen, so it has timeout setting. Make sure they have to use biometric as well and cannot use any jailbroken devices. And we will click Save. So now that we've added this in, we can go create a user policy just for our admin users. We'll cover all of this more later on in this course, but we want to do this step right now so that you know in production when you are starting to implement OneLogin that you want to do this so that while you are going through your implementation steps, your super users and yourself are logging in securely, and that means MFA. So I'm going to go over here to MFA tab. I'm going to say one-time password or OTP required, and they're going to use OneLogin Protect. Now I'm going to save the policy. Now in order to apply it to my users, we will do it manually at this point. We'll talk again more about these policies and how to automatically assign policies to users later on. But I am going to, for example, assign it to user account that I am currently using and go to the authentication tab over here and choose admin user policy from the drop down. Right, so now as the admin user here, I'm going to go to my profile and I can actually register my authentication factor from here. It also could prompt me when I log in to add the MFA factor, but since I'm already logged in, I'm going to go do it through the profile here. I'm going to click on Add Factor. It's going to tell me to install OneLogin Protect, which I've already done. Ooh, look, we have a phone over here with OneLogin Protect. We've clicked on the plus button, so we're ready to activate. And in fact, this little guy over here is going to be used to do my activation. So I'm scanning the QR code with the phone, and now we can see we've added in the account over here. So we're all set to use OneLogin Protect when we log in. So if I now log out, now we will log in with our demo admin account. Carefully type our password and voila. And if we look at the phone, we can see we got a push notification. Log in immediately, can accept. And sending in the OTP. While I get logged in. Voila. Now that we have the ability to ensure that our administrators log in securely, you can go and add in whatever other users you need to help with your administration. So add in new users, make sure they have super user privileges, and then make sure that they're assigned to that new user policy we just created that requires MFA. Next step would be to enable branding. It's really somewhat optional, but it's nice to get it out of the way as soon as you can so you don't forget about it and start having users log into the portal before you have configured the look and feel to match your brand. Branding options can be found under the Settings menu. Most accounts already have branding enabled, but if it's not enabled, you really want to make sure it's enabled and set the subdomain that will be used to access your OneLogin account. Once branding is enabled and you've set the subdomain, you can make a few other changes. Maybe upload a company logo or choose, company colors for the menu bar, your buttons. You can even have a custom background image that's used for your login screen. Or perhaps customize parts of the login screen, like the label where the username is. Maybe it's easier for your users to understand that they should type their email address into that text box. So you could label it email address to help them out. Or perhaps you have a custom web page that you created for your users when they need help or have questions. You can actually embed the URL to that page by setting the link text property of login help. And if you want to, you can customize the message that your users will see when they initiate a forgot password process. Again, branding at this point is, for the most part, optional. At minimum, you do want to make sure, though, that it is enabled. Let's check it out. Here, within the OneLogin admin UI, underneath Settings, we can find branding. Again, if your subdomain isn't already set, you would see this as a blank, so you need to set it. And there would be a toggle button to enable branding. And then down here, you can always upload a new logo. PNG, transparent, usually works best. That's what's appearing in my upper left-hand corner here, as well as on my login page. And I can set primary color. That's what's choosing the background color for my menu bar. And the accent color down here is going to determine colors like my buttons. And then if I go to login screen, again, I can specify custom label, upload some sort of custom image for that login screen, maybe a little overlay. Again, how transparent is that going to be? And perhaps a custom link, again, to appear on the login screen, maybe redirecting to a page that you've already set up that you intend to help your users through. This concludes part 1 of how to get started with OneLogin Workforce Identity. Please continue on to part 2.
This is a presentation of OneLogin Training.